ghost story. Today, I was interviewed by Rachel's ghost. No need to be too scared. Rachel is my dear friend from Canada. I love Rachel. So should you. She has a YouTube channel called Rachel's Ghost. Nothing to do with the paranormal. They're a VC, a vinyl community. They love to talk about records, record players, amps, speakers, collecting box sets, selling and trading second-hand records. But they cover politics, news of the day, jokes, pop culture, celebrities, America, Canada, Britain, Australia. It's a lot of fun. They were always very welcoming when I go into Rachel's room. She makes a warm welcome for me, and she'd welcome you if you want to go and check out her channel. She does a daily stream, early morning Canada time, sort of about 11 or midnight our time. So if you're a bit of an insomniac, as I am sometimes, that's when I catch up with Rachel's room, Rachel's Ghost. So today she interviewed me. She had put the invitation out quite some time ago, and it took me a while to get myself ready and decide that it was time to put myself out there, build up the channel a little bit. I'd like to welcome the new subscribers. Enough of me bantering. Let's get on to Rachel's Ghost.
Hey folks, we're just awaiting the arrival of Cherry Carter. She will be with me. We're going to do an interview here on the Rachel's Ghost program, and we're going to learn about her story in music. Just a full disclosure at the beginning of things, it'll become apparent to some that Cherry is indeed a trans woman, such as myself, and I am a post-operative transgender. And Cherry has that aspect of her humanity in common with me. But we'll talk to her a little bit about that. And but hopefully, we'll get her up and get the camera, the microphone, everything. We just tried to get it going, but we're having a little bit of trouble with it. So hopefully this time around that she'll come in and that'll all be solved. Boom, boom, boom. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Yeah, slightly different. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, really dealing with drag queens to be distinct from transsexual people or, people that have had surgery. It's a different psychology at work, Norman. But yeah, it's certainly Australia. Craig goes, Dingo, sadly, it might be. I wonder how many Australians have heard that comment, Craig. I wonder if that's a new comment, if that's something novel for them, or if this is something they may have heard before. We just don't know. I'm here for the performance art, Michael Pilmer. We appreciate your presence. You're fantastic. Folks, Michael Pilmer, this guy works for the band Devo, of all things. And if you like Devo, you definitely want to be subscribed to Michael Pilmer. I am here for the performance art. We do a lot of that over here, performance art and the like. My friend, Cherry Carter, is about to join me. She is in the green room, as we say, and she looks like she's ready to go. Boom! There she is. We got the camera going. Everything's going great. You look great. You got.
Hello, Rachel. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Can I say what a privilege it is to meet you?
This is good. Now, we got to make sure that your YouTube volume is down, but that the StreamYard's up. Otherwise, we'll get an echo effect as we go through this.
Sure.
Okay. Now, I got to make sure all my windows are. I got a bunch open. So we got to do this.
Right.
Boom. All right.
Yeah. Now I do live in the country, so it may drop out, but hopefully it won't. But occasionally it drops out.
Okay. So they do have internet in Australia. They do, but she's out in the country. Cherry, I'm so glad you're here. You have a fascinating story. I'm privy to it. And because we are doing this over the wire, I'm in Canada, you're in Australia, long distances. So there's going to be some
And
lag before my question and your answer. I will do my
yeah,
best not to talk over you. Yes, the Beatles are the best. So, Cherry, we're talking about your story in music. And after the show, I'm going to go in and put a link to your channel. You've got a really,
yeah,
really interesting channel. You got a really, really interesting story. So,
yeah.
Cherry, I want to ask you, tell the kids a bit about yourself. I always ask people kind of what year they were born. It gives me a sense of what kind of music they're going to be exposed to growing up. Somebody born in 1990 is going to be exposed to different music and different influences than, say, somebody born in 1954, Norman Maslow. There's going to be a
No,
difference.
well, I was born in. I'm born the 9th of December, 1960, and I'm the youngest of three. So I had a big sister, huge into the Rolling Stones. My sister ran on stage and kissed Mick Jagger. Mazzy, how about that? Then I have a brother in between.
So you're the youngest of the team. You're the youngest sibling.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where are you? Are you born in Australia, or where are you born?
Yeah. So Dad was a baker or a pastry cook, and we lived in Brighton, which is a Bayside suburb behind a shop, a cake shop. Very, very wealthy suburb on the bay. And I was born in the back of the shop. Used to sit while Mum and we called her Nana. My grandmother worked in the front of the shop. Dad made wedding cakes, pies. They came from all over for Dad's confectionery. I grew up eating as many cakes as I wanted, so I don't eat a lot of cakes anymore.
So you're born in Brighton, England, the famous seaside.
No, Victoria, Australia.
Oh, Victoria. So you guys have a Brighton in Australia as well. All right. Yeah. Okay. This makes sense because they name things after England, place names in England, like Victoria itself, right?
Well, Dad was from Yorkshire.
So English father, and your mum. Where's your mum from?
Yeah. Mum was Australian, from St Kilda, so a local girl, and Dad came over on the ships. He was on the ships working in the galley, making the cakes and the pies and the food for the sailors.
Massey wishes he could have kissed Mick Jagger.
And my sister is still telling that story.
All right. So I'm so glad we got. And do you pronounce it cherry with a hard CH, or is it sherry, more like the drink with the soft SH sound for your name?
Well, either is okay. I say cherry, but I've got a dental plate, which sometimes makes me whistle a little bit, but whatever's good.
All right, dear. So, okay, so let's cut to the first up. So we were discussing earlier that you are in fact transgender, such as myself. We're both post-operative transgender individuals. How do you define yourself? Do you define yourself as a trans woman, or you just go, no, I'm a woman? For you, how do you orientate that way?
Well, I had my surgery in Thailand, Rach, so a little bit different than you. I consider myself a married transgender woman. I'm not a genetic woman, obviously, but I am, as Popeye said, I is who I is.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And at what age did the gender dysphoria first manifest for you? Ballpark.
Well, look, I probably like yourself, I can find some pointers along the way from when I was young, but it was the advent of the internet. I realized there were other people like me. So we're looking at about 20 years ago. I was getting near 40, and I started finding chat groups on, I think it was Microsoft used to have these chat groups, and I found cross-dressers and, transgenders and transsexuals, and it was all confusing and I didn't know what was going on. But through those girls, I started to figure out, well, these are the options available if you want to go down that path.
Yeah. Josh D asked the question, were you nervous about going to Thailand for that kind of surgery? Or surgery in general, Thailand?
Well, I went on my own, Josh. There was no one to hold my hand. And I booked the surgeon off the internet. So, I could have been peddled to the back store of a noodle shop and served to the customers. But I trusted in, once again, those girls that had gone before me. They recommended the surgeon, the care, and I was able to book it over his website. I knew what I was in for. It was a great feeling of relief when the surgery was about to be performed, before they put me to sleep. I cried because it was the end of that journey, and it was final, and I've never looked back. It's the best thing I've done.
We're having fun with the trans thing. Easy now goes, I can't believe Malaya fell asleep in Ryan's corral. We got a romance brewing today between Malaya and Ryan Anderson. And then Ryan responds, actually, it's actually a trans. It's a Trans Am. All right, Ryan. Rachel, this is cool. The interview here. Cherry's cool. And I'm just so happy to know her. Now, listen, you've got a YouTube channel. When did you start your YouTube channel?
Well, I've got to thank you, Rachel. It was about 2 years ago. I saw you in an interview. You were doing a chat. You were in front of that little bookcase. You were having a chat about Abbey Road or something. And I thought, what a brave trans woman. I left you a message. I said, good on you, sister. You're doing it. Little did I know you didn't need any extra confidence. You're a confident woman. But then people like Larry Graves, Mr. Mayo, yourself, I started thinking, if they can do it, maybe I could. And I needed a topic, and I'm planning to go to South Africa in October. So I thought, I bought this new camera. It's like a GoPro, but it's an Osmo, and I needed to learn how to use it. So I thought, well, I'll start making videos with my new camera, and then by the time I get to South Africa, I'll be accomplished with it. I'll know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Now, I've seen your YouTube channel. It's a little different. It's not music oriented. We're going to get into the music, and I got some good music for you, folks. I was really pleasantly surprised, because you tend to kind of downplay your abilities, but the songs I heard, I really enjoyed them both. I played all three, but I've chosen two for the program. And just so that you get a sense of things, people like Cherry and myself, we have paths, right? We have these male paths. So not every person that's in our situation is comfortable with that. But in Cherry's case, we're going to do it. And she's allowed me to do so. I'm going to play some music just to give you a sense that she has a musical background. Go ahead.
Just before you do, Rachel, can I give you a background to what was happening? I'm not sure which one you're going to play. Essentially,
I'll tell you right now. I'm starting with "Take You Down." I'm just starting with that one.
Okay. So I spent most of my adult life working in the IT industry. I wasn't suited to it. I hated it. And eventually I burnt my bridges and made sure I got sacked and got paid out, and I could never go back to it. So then I needed something to do. So I started busking. I'd always played guitar, and I went to Sydney to basically busk around the clock. I read that Mark Bolan, that's the way he got started. He used to busk 18 hours a day. I thought, I can do that. So I went to Sydney. I didn't know anybody, but I wanted to form a band. I've always wanted to, and I wanted guys with long hair, good looking, and I wanted to write and record some songs that I had. And so we called ourselves Cherry and the Cheyenne Nation. And we went into a studio. We recorded the track you're going to hear. There are pictures of me on the clip where I'm kind of androgynous, where I'm, but you can see where I'm heading. So that's the
Yeah, well, and
explanation.
it looks punk to me. It's got a kind of a punk ass ethic to me, the way the presentation is, because there is
Yeah, a little
makeup
bit.
and there's that. But go ahead.
Yeah, a little bit glam, maybe a little bit glam.
Yeah, glam punk, kind of a combo that way. We'll let the people make up their own minds about it, but it's really good. I want to, because it'll round out the character for you. You'll understand a bit more of Cherry's background and what she brings musically
And
to the thing.
once again, I want to let the peanuts know I am no Mark Kopernicki. I'm not never claimed to be a brilliant guitarist or musician, but I wrote my songs. I wrote the lyrics. I arranged it. And I went into a studio and it was mixed and recorded. It's a baby, and you got to love your babies.
I like it. I think the people are going to like it. We're going to play it for you now, folks. And one of the things I got to do is I'm going to have to mute my own sound, and we'll let this roll.
Oh, I don't know what you've been told. The eye sure ain't straight. Woman's soul is rock and roll. Hell, I just can't wait. Take you down, deep on down, life gets to see. Stolen dreams and gorgeous dreams, come on and lay with me. Gonna take you down, deeper than you've ever gone. I take you deep, dead and sleep, back where you belong. Gonna take you deep, yes, my sweet, deeper than a garden bed. Take you down, deep, my garden bed. Oh, I don't know what you been told me, I just ain't straight. Warm and soul is rock and roll, me, I just can't wait. Down to the river ground, that's where you're gonna be. Down where leaving dirty town, come on and lay with me. All these feelings all on me. Hold you closer, set you free. All these feelings all on me. Hold you tighter, set you free. All these feelings over me. Hold you closer, set you free. All these feelings over me. Hold you tighter, set you free. I'm gonna take you down, deep on down, deeper than a garden bed. Take you down, deep on down, deep my garden bed.
Okay, and so I've just lost her temporarily. Hopefully, we can get her back for this. But that was Cherry with her band that she had done some time ago. It's good energy in it, and I like it quite a bit. Yeah, so it's a great look. It's kind of a glam thing, as Cherry was saying, and but certainly rock and roll. I'm very protective of her. Obviously, it takes a lot of guts for trans women to be up here on the internet, especially with this community. We have our naysayers, we have our critics, and but it's to Cherry's credit that we're able to get her here today. Here she is. She's back. Hey, Cherry, thank you so much for that. I loved it. I think it's really good. What do you think, kids? You like it? Thumbs up. How do you rate it? It's got a good beat. It got a dance to it. Dick Clark. What are you saying, kids? Welcome back, Cherry. So yeah,
you might have seen there. Rachel was playing this beautiful Fender Telecaster, the metallic,
the retro Paisley look on it.
Paisley. Yeah, it got stolen by some heroin junkie in Sydney, but they come, they go.
Josh D goes, the picture in the leather jacket is badass. Cherry, do you have a hard time seeing yourself like that from old days before, you know?
Well, once again, you've changed my mind a bit. I'm not as militant and hardcore as I used to be. I used to be real jump down someone's throat if they misgendered me, and I burnt a lot of photos of me. I burnt albums of photos of me. I want to destroy my past, but these days, it's who I am. It's what I did. So, oh, thanks, Wolf.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's my philosophy. Yeah, that's what I do. I try and own my past. I own it all. And it's just the authenticity is that I guess that we're after at the end of the day.
And honestly, folks, if you want to go down this path, you've got to be a little bit thick-skinned. You can't afford to listen to the knockers and the, you just got to go on your path and do what you think's right. And so I'm glad that I kept some stuff. And I did those clips yesterday. I thought, well, I know most of the peanuts here. They like their music, so I'll make a little video clip, put some photos with the music, so you know what it's about or who I am.
Well, yeah, and Cherry, obviously, I mean, you found me through music. It's the music I was saying because you follow Joe Mayo and some of the other channels. You mentioned Larry Graves, so you're obviously a music fan. You play music. Go ahead.
Well, it's the Beatles. So when I was about 5 or 6, my sister and my brother, they had all the Beatle records. And that's how I got into it. And I remember there's photos, I think I probably sent them to you. There's photos of me at Christmas in 67 holding Sgt. Pepper, about to put on a little record player, put the needle on. Photos of me with a Christmas hat holding Sgt. Pepper. Photos of me in 65 with a plastic Beatle wig singing into a garden hose. So they were my earliest memory, was that Help album. I love Help that my sister had. I knew every song, every word, and that was my introduction. Then in Australia in the late 60s, we had shows on Saturday mornings called Go Set, I think it was, but they showed clips of Australian bands and the very early primitive video clips that were coming out from overseas, and I'd sit all Saturday morning watching these music shows with my brother. My brother was a big collector of 45s and LPs, and he went a little heavier than my sister. My sister was more a Rolling Stones girl, but she liked the Beatles as well. So yeah, that was my influence.
Yeah, and you're fortunate you have these older siblings there where you're being exposed to music through them, which is fairly common. I just want to make sure that I'm closing windows. The last thing I want is for my screen to lock up. So I try and keep things down to a minimum so that there's not too much interfering with my own picture and computer. So you come through the Beatles. Are you a record collector? Because so many of us are, I got to buy records. And do you collect records or CDs, physical media at all?
No, not really. I will add that I wanted to write to the Beatles in 1969 or 70. I asked Mum if I could write to Paul McCartney to ask him if he was actually dead. And Mum said, well, either way, you're not going to get the response that you're hoping for. And I also wanted to write to them to tell them not to break up. But to answer your question, no, I didn't buy records until 1974. Now, I interviewed my brother on my channel. He was in a band called Void in South Africa that went on to be quite successful. But at the time when my brother played, in 74 where we were living, there was no TV, there was no bands touring. It was short hair. The police could pick you up off the street and take you and have your hair cut, send you to the army. But my brother started buying these records, and he was learning to play drums. He had this rubber drum kit, a practice kit, and, he was going off to Deep Purple Burn, I remember. So he was bringing home Purple, Wishbone Ash, Jethro Tull, Grand Funk, Rare Earth, Santana, all those sort of early 70s band. He liked heavy stuff. He introduced me to Alice Cooper, and Alice Cooper became my favourite of the lot. But his band used to play in Brackpan at church halls or golf clubs, and that was the only time you saw guys with long hair playing music. And so we'd go along that. Some of the songs they did, for instance, they did Pink Floyd Time. They did Radar Love.
Yeah, great.
They did Alice Cooper, Muscle of Love, best song ever by Alice, in my opinion. They did
1974.
All Right Now by Free. So when he was bringing these records home, of course, I started playing them. Now, I do have my first record I ever bought to show the Peanuts and yourself.
Yeah.
And I only found it a couple of days ago.
Okay. Well, let's take a look. Boom. Okay, what do you got there? Black Sabbath, Paranoid. It's an import. Tell me about it.
Well, it's from South Africa. Now it's got a different cover than the usual Paranoid. And I have the receipt when I bought it. So I bought it on the 4th of the 11th in 74 for the princely sum of R5.50.
Okay, a rand is the South African denomination.
Now, because of this, my mate and I, and my friends and I, we wanted to form a band, but we were only learning guitar at that stage, but that wasn't quick enough. So we went on to form a band called Electric Birth. Now, on this album is Electric Funeral, so we became Electric Birth. And we went to the tip and we found equipment to make a band. We found paint tins that we painted like a drum kit. We had dads welded it for us. We made wooden guitars. I made a guitar in the shape of a Maltese cross, like Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople. And Dad painted it red for me. We went to the level of getting the little caps off toothpaste tubes and making them our volume controls on these fake instruments. And in our lounge, we would pump the stereo up to 12, like the neighbours were always complaining about us. We'd pull the blinds back and we'd rock on to the records. And it got to where the people in the street started standing outside the house to watch us perform in the lounge. Now, another album I have to mention, it was huge, was Status Quo Pile Driver. Now, on the album cover of Pile Driver, you see the three guys in Quo leant over with the guitars. It did something in my head. It was men with long hair, denim, and the camaraderie of three guys rocking out. It was a huge influence on me.
Yeah. And so you come by it really honestly. You're also a woman that's been your life is shared between two main continents. You're in Victoria, Australia, Melbourne, but then you spent time in South Africa. So did your dad get a job over there and the family moved to South Africa? A lot of this is explained on your channel. Like you go into great detail, but obviously for time constraints here, we just wanted to cut to some of the events, give people a good sense of idea where you are, where you've come from, what you're about, and then hopefully we'll send some people over to your channel. But tell me about South Africa.
Okay, so in 1971, Dad, he was always restless because of his background in the Navy and all that. He took this job in South Africa, and my family, my brother and I, and Mum and Dad, we got on a ship like they used to do in those days, 3-week cruise across to Durban, and we landed in 1950s Nazi Germany without knowing it. They were a highly militaristic society. Long-haired, jeans, any of that were frowned upon. And we ended up in this place which was mostly Afrikaans, and they hated the English-speaking. The Boer War had never ended to these people. They were highly, highly religious and conservative. So we were only there for 6 months, maybe 8 months. Mum was killed in a car accident. I talk about that on the channel. It was Christmas. We were going to come back to Australia, but Dad kind of liked the job, and he was probably on a contract. So we ended up staying for I was there for nearly 6 years as a young teenager, and school was martial. You know, they were belting us. Yeah, I won't go into it all. You get the idea. It was kind of tough, but what got me into the other love of my life, the Boer War, was at the time when we were facing all this anger and hatred. Not only did they hate us, of course they hated the blacks, but someone told me one day, you know, there were Australians here. I said, why? They said Australians were here for the Boer War. There's a place not far from where you live where an Australian was awarded a military cross. And that opened my eyes, and I thought, wow, there were other Australians here in a hard time. And I don't know, I always related to that. And Canadians were there, and New Zealanders. But anyway, I was getting into a lot of trouble, drugs, alcohol, all that sort of stuff. And my sister, who had never come across, my big sister wrote to Dad and said, you know, why don't you send them back? Married, got a house now. They can finish their school here and then make up their own minds what they want to do. So I only ever came back to Australia for a year, and then it ended up, I didn't want to go back and serve in the army in South Africa. You know, I'm Australian. I live in the country, by the way. I'm about 160 kilometres north of the city. I live on a sheep farm.
Yeah, there's pictures, of course, in the other video of some sheep shearing being done, and presumably by your husband that is taking that task on. But there's some pictures there.
I'm a good guy called Brian, and I'm lucky in that way. You know, I'm very lucky.
So Cherry, here's what's really interesting. Here's what I want to tell our audience here is, and this has to be done with the utmost sensitivity. But Cherry describes, she is in the car when her mother is killed, and Cherry describes it in such a fascinating, moving, profound way. I cannot tell you, folks, get over to her channel and watch her relate that story. It's chilling. It's everything. It's unbelievable, Cherry, how you describe it.
I can say now, I'm 10 years clean and sober, no drugs, no alcohol, through a 12-step program like Putterman did, same sort of thing. And I can say that for most of my life, I just blanked out as far as Mum's death went. So I found that this channel and talking about it is some kind of therapy. And it's been very gradual. I couldn't remember her voice. I couldn't remember her smell. But, you know, I've got bits and pieces in my archives that I've brought up to present. And what struck me about all that was how quickly we got up and we got on with life as if she never existed. And I didn't want that to continue. She has to exist.
Yeah, and you're very young when this occurs, but you are in the car and you weren't aware of what happened. Nobody told you what happened. It's profound. Again, folks, you want to check it out. And I don't have the link to Cherry's channel right now. After the interview's concluded, I'll put the effort in. We'll put a link to her channel, and you can check that out. But it's a pretty remarkable story. And also, it's great to see you drive around. There's a lot of driving. You do a lot of monologue, really, talking about the Boer War. There's a lot of history there. The dynamic between the English and the Dutch-based Afrikaners, that's a dynamic. And then you've got the African people themselves. So there's a lot going on there, Cherry, you know, in that cauldron that you're an Australian kid and suddenly you find yourself transplanted over there. Hey, Andy, welcome to the show. Good to have you here.
I was going to say, you know, the little place I live, there's about 900 people live here. We've got one general store and we have a pub. And there is an author that lives not far from here. He wrote a book, and it's compiled of letters from men from this district that went to South Africa to fight in the Boer War. And that's what I use. I drive to these, sometimes, like I've driven 8 hours in a day. I've driven extraordinary distances to get to these Boer War monuments. They're all over the joint, but I'll probably never get to all of them. But I read out a letter from someone which sort of relates it as we can relate to what they were going through, because it wasn't that long ago. It was 120 years ago, the Boer War.
Yeah, of course, there's memorials there. The soldiers that came out from Australia to fight in that conflict. And then there's one where I saw you where you had to go talk to the manager of the museum and you were given permission to have access to it. So there's a lot of history there is what we're trying to say. Long story short, there's a lot of history to be found over on her channel. And that's really what it's about. It's not really a vinyl community story channel, but it really is a story of Cherry's life and her all the kind of, there's this big background for it, but there's a lot of you in it. This is that cathartic aspect of things. So you do get a sense of knowing Cherry the person, which I think is wonderful. And it's a great channel. I love it. And I'll binge watch you. I'll actually go on there on my television. So I don't always leave a comment, but I sit in there and just let the episodes roll by, right? So really good.
Yeah, I've got.
Deep Ears, this is my friend Cherry. Go ahead, Cherry.
I was going to say I've got more coming. In fact, my husband went up to New South Wales in his caravan last week, so I got him to take some footage of monuments in New South Wales, and they're big ones. So yeah, they'll be coming as well.
So in terms of music and this sort of thing, have you been tempted by this community of ours? Whoops, sorry, go ahead, say again. Sorry, we got the delay going.
No, in fact, I've pretty much given up on music. I don't play anymore. I don't have a record player. I don't play CDs. I have a shuffle. I've got on my tablet. I shuffle through about 2,500 songs. So yeah, I don't really worry too much about the sound quality or anything. I just and I only listen to music. I'm doing the dishes or I'm cooking, and or I'm driving. Sometimes I put music on. I don't even turn the radio on in the car. So, but I love watching you guys buy your records. I love unboxing videos. I love seeing huge racks of records. I've got a few records here. I don't know if you're interested or what you'd like to do from here, Rach.
I'm just here having fun with you, letting the kids know you because you're a frequent supporter of this channel. You're a familiar avatar or emoji in the peanut gallery, and I'm very thankful to you for that, for your support of the channel. Cherry, I love you, and I have so much respect for you in coming on here and telling us a little bit about your channel and show. And in fact, I'm going to get a link for it. I'm just going to put it out. Because again, after it's going to be available after. But if anybody's interested in history, the Boer War, this kind of thing, I'm going to get Cherry's channel for you.
We've got about 42 subscribers, so if we could get to 50, I'd be pretty happy.
Hey, can we get our 8 subscribers, kids? Here we are. Here's the link for it. But yeah, I just love hearing people's stories. Yeah, go ahead.
And also, I'll make mention your channel. I've actually got a nephew whose wife collects records and vinyl. So I've been telling her about your stream. But yeah, I'll make it known as well that, I mean, your stream has been highly entertaining. I remember the night I first stumbled into it, I was quite shy. I had come in a few times and everybody seemed to know each other, and we're probably looking about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years perhaps. But anyway, on that occasion, you welcomed me. I remember my husband was away then as well, and I had to go and get the cat, find the cat. You know, we live on a farm. We've got snakes, we've got foxes, so I remember going out stumbling around in the dark looking for the cat, thinking, I want to get back and see what these people are all about. So yeah, I love hearing your music stories and your record purchases, because it saves me from buying them. But I had a fantastic in the 70s, late 70s. I had this black Marantz, you know, and it was shiny. It had smoky glass on the panel, and I loved my record player. But you know, along the way, it fell by the wayside. Ended up on the pavement, and I had about 300 records. And I took up with a woman in about the year 2000, and that's when CDs were coming in. So I said to her, I'm going to get rid of all these records, and I took them down to, we call them op shops, you call them thrift shops, but I kept some that I thought might be valuable later on. So I've got a few there, but the vast majority of them, and I used to collect Beatles records. I used to go to record fairs and buy Beatles records. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, well, it's like, I mean, because of the vinyl community, is really Ron Beaudry, one of our friends here. He would show records, and I'm like, oh, I used to own that. I used to own that. And there was a real draw just because he was showing them all the time. And I owned so many of these things. I said, I got to start collecting these again because I'm very nostalgic, Cherry. And because of that nostalgic impetus, it got me back into buying them again. Now, for Craig, I've only heard of Africa, the continent. Is there a country as well? No, Africa is a continent. It's made up of various countries. So if I use the word country earlier, it's a slip of the tongue. It's a mistake. But no, clearly Africa is a continent. There is no particular country of Africa, right? South Africa is a country, though. So it gets a little confusing, Craig, but there you have it. Same as Australia. Australia is a country, but it's also a continent. So it's both. Does double duty in that case. Hey, Karabaku, Frankie, it's good to have you here. I'm on at a different hour tonight to facilitate my friend Sherry. She's living in Australia. And for her, it's coming up on 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if I'm doing my clock right.
Yeah, that's right. 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, she does have some great stories to tell. You want to check that out. And hey, Craig, it happened. I mean, people question, right? You just want to make sure I'm on point.
Now, Rach, do you want to play the Country Girl song, and I'll tell you a bit about that?
Okay, you tell the story, and then I'll play the tune.
Is that okay with you? I'm not pushing you or directing you or anything.
I'm totally. It's just we have the lag from where you are and where I am, so we just have these little pauses during the presentation. I think you should tell us a little bit about the song, and then I'll play it so people have a frame for it.
So at one stage of my life, I was living in Paran, which is an inner city Melbourne suburb, and very bohemian, very artistic, and lots of rundown houses. So I was sharing this house with all these students. Now I was about 40, maybe early 40s, and they were in their early 20s. We all wore leather. We all wore black. They were wannabe art students and bohemians, and we lived on mung beans, and the house had, cracks in the floor. Someone gave me this software which was to record music. So it had a little mixing desk when you loaded it on your computer, a little mixing desk. And I'm going to mention there were drugs involved. Okay, so I didn't sleep all night. I don't do them anymore, but I was a bit younger then. So I had kind of fallen for this girl called Louise. That was one of these nut jobs that live on the internet that come up with a fantasy world and drag people in. And I took the fantasy world by the hook, and I was completely sucked in. So I fell for this girl. And anyway, I stayed up all night and I wrote this song. Now, I used my Telecaster with a slide. I used a phone book as a drum, and I used an acoustic. And someone who heard it said, this would be really good for country and western, outback Australia, where they drive trucks and they live in the red dust of the centre of Australia. They'd like this song. So it's kind of catchy.
Cherry has definitely lived life, and there's way more because it's a family-friendly show. We can't tell you half the stuff that the lady got up to, but
don't do drugs.
Yeah, don't do drugs. And again, we did cover this a little bit, but before we go play the clip, I'll let Sherry answer the question for you, Dees. Why the interest in the Boer War? He missed earlier because he came in later. So.
Well, just quickly, we went on a school bus trip when I was about 13, 14. We saw some Boer War sites on this school excursion, and I was stuck in South Africa in a very conservative Afrikaans town, and they hated people that spoke English. And I found out that Australians had been there during the Boer War, so it gave me a little bit of comfort to know there had been Australians ahead of me in that hostile environment.
And there's your answer, Dees. Nicely put. Okay, so let's play this. I'm going to mute myself again. Everybody loves that part.
One more thing.
Yes, Jerry.
These are photos of me post-transition. So this is where I live now. I'm not a country girl. I was born in the city. I lived in the city, but I married this guy, Brian, who has this sheep farm. That's why I find myself here. So these photos that you're going to see are all of me around this district.
All right, love. Here we go. I got to mute me, and then we're going to do this.
Good morning, Louise. Time to wake, country girl. There's work to be done.
She's a country girl in a city world, from Barlow Downs to city frowns. When I took her on our very first date, I couldn't wait to get to her gate. She told me she had a friend chaperone, and I met a girl with a sheep called Simone. In a city world, she loves all things like women. Asked her to society's best. She asked me to dress to impress. I told her, girl, wear me a skirt. She danced all night in a knee-length flannelette shirt. Country girl in a city world, a smile as wide as an outback drive. I want to ride a horse with you, see the world as you do, see your mountain home. You're never alone in a city world. Country girl in a city world. From Tippenborough to city clutter, in a maker, a city blinker. She's a country girl in a city world. A country girl in a city world. A smile as wide as an outback drive. Hair like corn in the brightest morn. She's my country girl.
Wow, I love that. It was some beautiful pictures, Cherry. I love it. And I'm just thrilled to have you up here with me, and we can talk a bit. And folks, I really do. I binge on this lady's video channel, and I put a link in there. It's going to be here after the show. I'm going to go in and put it there for her. And I'm really happy to have her up here. So, Jerry, do you have any favorite YouTubers other than me? But are there anybody else? I know that you watched Joe Mayo, and I've seen you comment. You drop a comment on Joe from time to time. He's got a great channel. And there's that Beatles thing again, of course.
Look, I'm always finding new guys or channels. I've been watching someone called the Cinema Chat, the movie guy, Darren. I like him.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not adverse to a good-looking guy on YouTube. Pop Goes the 60s, kind of like him a bit.
Yeah, I watched that.
But look, my interests are cooking shows. I love cooking, music, records, history. The History Chap is a guy I really like from England. Military, channels. Days with Jordan the Lion. I like him a lot. Scott Michaels.
Dearly Departed tours. He's great.
I've been interested in the Manson family as well. So Danny and all that.
Danny and that's Paul Cast, and I got to give them all, and Mr. Beckham, because I'll be in trouble if I don't mention all three of them.
And in fact,
great. I like them.
Danny helped me with this feral cat that was living under the house. I was able to get her. I know a lot about cats. I've always kept them, but she has stayed involved with me in this bloody big feral tomcat that has taken over the house. So that's the wonderful thing with the internet. You can reach out to people and get a bit of expertise when it's needed.
Yeah, I gotta recommend Trish to you. Trish is over in New Jersey. They call it the Garden State. And if you're not subscribed to Trisha, she does like a lot of outdoor photography and the like, and she's just lovely. And we love Trish, and so she's a good channel. And I hope you go and make a point of subscribing to her and giving her some support. Trish is, we don't get her all the time because I'm up awful early, as you know. We don't get you unless you were saying you get insomnia. Then because I come on around 12 o'clock your time, right?
Yeah, but daylight savings is going to end soon, and then it'll be back to normal.
Yeah.
Right. When I got here, I knew nothing about sheep. So and Brian as well. Brian is just a hobby farmer, so we had to learn about drenching sheep, trimming their nails, what they eat. We have terrible flies in Australia in summer. Fly strike is not something you want to encounter, folks. And my husband isn't that good with animals. He's a bit scared of even chickens scare him. So I've had to take on the grunt work of picking a sheep up, throwing it on its back. So I may look feminine, perhaps, but I'm pretty strong in doing and picking up snakes. We had a snake attack one of our lambs. I said, "This ain't going to happen." And I went and picked up, they call them a brown snake, and I picked it up and I wrapped it in a towel. And people around me said, "You did what?" I won't kill animals. I'm not a vegetarian, but I won't kill animals unless really necessary. And in that case, that snake didn't have to be killed.
Well,
I'm also a bit.
I knew a guy. Yeah, I wrote a book once, and my co-writer was from Australia. The book was actually published in Australia by a now sadly deceased publisher by the name of Michael Burbank. But anyway, it was Burbank's books. We did this book, and my co-writer is from Melbourne or something. And he says, "Oh, yeah," he says, "you won't believe it. We got spiders." I go, "Spiders?" He goes, "Yeah, spiders. We got these giant spiders, Rachel." And I'm going, "Oh my God. This sounds horrible."
Spiders, mate.
Okay, now listen, Church, for some lighthearted stuff. I got 3 questions from Rob the Waxed. Are you ready? These are 3 questions to Rob. You've never heard anybody ask you any of these questions.
Serve them up.
Okay,
serve them up, Wax.
Has a dingo ever eaten your baby? And it wants to know as well. Has a dingo eaten your baby? Now, what about that? These are the stereotypical things.
Never had any babies. Never had a baby.
Okay, next question. Have you ever put a shrimp on the Barbie?
Yeah, we
Have
call
you
them
put a
prawns here.
shrimp on the Barbie?
Yeah, they're prawns.
Yeah, this is
Now,
listen. It's Rob's material. I'm just don't kill the messenger.
so something you wouldn't perhaps know is that the people in Queensland, and we're down the bottom, we're in Victoria, they call us Mexicans. So even South Australia has different words for different things. So we call them prawns. The people in Sydney call them shrimp.
Okay, so depending where you are, so we actually learned something. Smart Alex.
Yeah.
One more question: if you could be a tree, Cherry, I assume she'd be a cherry tree. I don't want to give the plot away, but if you could be a tree, what tree would you be? This is a question for Rob the Wax.
I don't know, maybe a hemp bush.
What kind of bush?
Hemp.
A hemp bush. All right. Well, very useful, very pragmatic, very
It's
practical.
something I've never considered. So, you know.
Charlie Lauder wants to know: is rugby better than football? Are you a sports girl? Do you like watching the sports at all?
Let me tell you something, Charlie. Rugby is not a game. Rugby is for men who have no necks and no brain. If you want to know football, a sport, it's AFL. That is real footy. We play real footy in Victoria. We don't play that bum sniffing nonsense they play up there in the rest of Australia.
Okay,
Let me add to that. Hang on, Rachel. The opening round of our AFL drew 86,000 fans for the opening game of the season. New South Wales rugby would never in their dreams get those sort of figures.
Okay, now, so Cherry, is this the one where they go like this? The referees, they.
Yeah, they do this.
Yeah, that's the Australian rules. I know that Eric Weinbender's a big fan of it over here.
Yeah.
Eric's in South Carolina, but he's a big Australian rugby
game.
Australian football, I think they call it. Now, I hope I haven't lost you on the connection. Holy smokes. We don't want to lose her on Australian football rules. I'm telling you that much. Now, everybody, am I still coming through at least? I think Cherry's frozen there. So hopefully she can reestablish her contact and we'll get her back for a little bit more. All right. She's triggered. Well, you got in there with the rugby thing. See, I think she got so worked up she had to cancel the thing. I'm going to remove her so she can come back. Okay. And I'll kick her and then she can come back in. So, okay, Cherry, trying to see if you can come back in. And we'll give her a little chance to come back, a little time. But yeah, it's fascinating hearing from people from different culture. I've never been to Australia. I don't know if you folks have been. It was very new to me, and I've certainly never been to South Africa. Although coincidentally, back when I was writing my book, my publisher is in Australia, but the editor of the book was in South Africa, and he ended up moving to England eventually, but he was living in South Africa at the time, and we wrote the book around 1997, 1998. Folks, we're going to give her a little bit of time, give her a couple more minutes, see if she can reconnect. Here she goes. I see her now. Let's see if she can come in. All right. Cherry, welcome back. Let's just spend about 4 minutes more. We don't want to press our luck because it's looking a little sketchy with our connect, but I'm so glad you're able to come back to us. So yeah, that's the Australian football rules thing. Australian football.
Yeah. It's the only sport I really follow.
Yeah. What about cricket? I always thought cricket, the Aussies were good at that too.
Yeah, that's a summer thing. I don't mind cricket, but yeah, I like footy. Footy's good.
Yeah, you guys call it the footy, right? And the footy, do you call soccer footy, or is it just Australian rules football?
Soccer is soccer.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's
you've
fantastic.
got
It's a great channel, folks. She's in her stories cover adventures both in South Africa and in Australia. And Sherry, I really think a big part of the success of the channel, or what makes it interesting to me, is there's so much of your own story interwoven with these great historic events, and your passion and interest in it. And you've done some interviews as well on your show with people that are historians and are interested in these events, historic events as well.
I don't know if you've ever heard the movie Breaker Morant. Wax might know
I've
it.
seen it.
He's a movie cine buff. I was fortunate to interview the great nephew of George Whitten, who was a third of the Australians tried. Two of them were executed for killing Boers. It was a beautiful film made in the 80s. So I was lucky to interview Brian Turley, who's the great nephew of George Whitten. That was a real privilege. I was very lucky to get that interview. My brother is interviewed on.
Keep going.
My brother is interviewed. I interviewed a guy I went to school with back then, and I hope in the next few days to get my old partner in crime, my compadre of crime, Brian Gould, interviewed. But we're working on that.
Yeah, is he shy? He doesn't want to be on camera?
They have terrible power problems in South Africa. They have the power goes off 3 times a day for 2 hours at a time. So the country is a wreck these days.
Yeah. Have you ever read the book called Boy by Roald Dahl? Roald Dahl's book called Boy?
No.
It's fascinating. I highly, highly, highly recommend you read Boy. It's Roald Dahl's. It's about his time in Africa, and his
that's right.
just prior to World War II.
Was he born in Bloemfontein, or am I thinking J.R. Tolkien? One of those was born in Bloemfontein.
I can't recall where exactly. I think he's born in England, but he talks about his time in Africa, and of course on the eve of World War II and what was going on there and what the environment was like. And it's a fascinating story. And of course, the follow-up to Boy is a book called Solo. He ended up becoming how I know this is because his World War II aviation experience in North African campaign, flying Hurricanes, British Hurricanes. But Roald Dahl, the book is called Boy. I think you'd really enjoy it.
So I went back to Africa quite a few times. Dad ended up living in Zimbabwe, in a beautiful little place right next to the game reserve. It was heaven on earth. So I was fortunate because I was in IT. I could take 6 months off, go and stay with Dad and mingle with the locals. And it was wonderful. But the thing was with South Africa, I'd go back and see my old school friends, but I never did what I wanted to do, which was to go and see the battlefields. So the Zulu War, Isildwana, Rorke's Drift, some of these other, and also the Boer War battlefields. I didn't know back in those days you could even go to these places. I didn't know they were open to the public. Yeah. So that's what I intend to do later on this year, and I'll hopefully be able to load the episodes to my YouTube channel as I see things. So for family back home and my husband and all that, they'll be able to see what I'm getting up to, on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right. Well, listen. Hello, Wagon Engineer. Welcome to the show. Cherry, you know what? I think we've covered everything as far as I'm concerned. I want to get the main thing, just letting folks, directing them to your channel. There's going to be a link to you. Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't touched upon that you'd like to address?
No, I just want to thank you for being you and for being a good friend to me from across the waves. Yeah. And you do a lot for our cause, if there is a cause, but just the visibility of transgender people, and you provide fun and entertainment every night. I don't know how you do it, but you do so. I just want to thank you, and It's lovely to meet you face to face in a form, in a way.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy to have you on board with us here today. Great privilege for me to talk to you as well, Cherry. And thanks for all the support. It's really appreciated. Folks, this is my friend Cherry Carter. I'm going to drop a link and you can go visit her channel. Thanks to everyone that was watching here today with us and that had the opportunity to support her channel by subscribing to her. You folks really are the best. It means a lot to all of us content creators, whether we're rock and rolling or whether we're talking about the Boer War or any other subject under the sun. Wagon Engineer, I got to go for now. I'm on daily at 6 a.m. in the morning. Okay, tell us about that. You got one last thing to show us.
I just found this at a bookshop the other day for $10. So that's what I've been reading.
All right. Now, I just finished Bob Dylan's The Philosophy of Song. So I'm always reading these books, biographies and this sort of thing, musically related. Take care, everybody. And I'll be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning, Canadian Pacific time. And we'll see you then. Love for Sherry. Thank you so much, Sherry. Bye for now. You can stay behind. We can even say hello to each other behind the screen. So don't go anywhere. Okay, you stay there. I'll be right back, kids. I'll be back tomorrow morning. You stay